In order to understand how the federal court system works, we need to know the structure of the federal court system. So let's talk about that in this video a little bit. And I'll start at the very top of the federal court system with the court that you probably have already heard of, and that is the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. As you probably know, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States. It's the top court of the court system. And as the top court, its job is to review the decisions of the lower courts, of the courts below it. So the Supreme Court reviews the decisions of the courts that are below it. And the courts that are directly below the United States Supreme Court are called the circuit courts. The circuit courts. And those courts are called circuit courts because the country is divided up into geographic regions called circuits. And we can see the circuits on this map right here. The circuits are numbered. The First Circuit, the Second Circuit, the Third Circuit, etc. And this map is color-coded to show you which states are included in each of the circuits. So out here on the West Coast, just as an example, all these states that are shaded this same gray-blue color here, they're all in the same circuit. And as you might have guessed by this number 9, they're all in the Ninth Circuit. And in the middle of the country here, all of these orange-colored states are all part of the Eighth Circuit. And it's the same way through the entire country. So all of the circuits, each circuit has a court just for that circuit. And that's what I've drawn here. That's what these boxes are underneath the Supreme Court. So the circuits are all numbered: the First Circuit, Second Circuit, the Third Circuit, Fourth, Fifth Circuit. And there's a court, a circuit court, for each one of those circuits. And the federal court system has 13 different circuits and circuit courts. 13 different circuits, each one having its own court. Actually, the official name for the circuit court is the United States Court of Appeals for the name of the circuit. Okay, so the First Circuit Court is officially called the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. Or sometimes we'll call it the First Circuit Court of Appeals for short, or even shorter, just the First Circuit Court. And it's all talking about the same court. The reason it's called the Court of Appeals is because it hears appeals. It hears the appeals of the lower courts. That just means that it reviews the decisions of the lower courts. Just like how the Supreme Court reviews the decisions of the circuit courts review the decisions of the courts below. And the courts that are below the circuit courts are courts that we call district courts. District courts. The country isn't just divided up into circuits. It's also divided up into even smaller segments, called districts. The districts are inside of the circuits. So looking back at the Ninth Circuit for an example, every state has at least one district inside of it, and sometimes that district takes up the entire state. So the state of Montana has one district inside of it, and the district takes up that entire state, and it's called, very logically, the District of Montana. Similarly, Idaho is a state that has only one district inside of it. That district takes up the entire state, and it's called the District of Idaho. But some of the more populated states have multiple districts inside of them. So for example, Washington is divided up into the Western District of Washington, and the Eastern District of Washington is divided by this little dotted line here. And even though they're both in the same state, the Western District and the Eastern District are two different districts, just like how the District of Idaho is different than the District of Montana. And California is even more heavily populated. It's divided into the Eastern District of California, the Northern District of California, the Central District, and the Southern District. And just so that the East Coast doesn't feel left out, let's look out here at the Second Circuit, much smaller in geographic region. It includes the state of Vermont, which is another state that has just one district for the entire state called the District of Vermont. But New York is divided into the Northern District, Western District, the Southern District, and the Eastern District. Just like how every circuit has a circuit court just for that circuit, it's the same way with the districts. Every district has a court just for that district, and it's called the district court. So remember, we just saw in the Second Circuit that the Second Circuit included districts like the Western District of New York and the Southern District of New York, and there were a few others, including the District of Vermont, which is a district that takes up an entire state. All right, and in the Ninth Circuit, which we looked at before that, the Ninth Circuit included the Northern District of California and the Southern District of California. There were quite a few districts, actually, in the Ninth Circuit. And the District of Oregon, just to give another example of a district that takes up an entire state. Now, these decisions that are made in the district court for a district can be reviewed by the circuit court for the circuit that the district is inside of. The Western District of New York is inside the Second Circuit, so the decisions by the district court for the Western District of New York can be reviewed by the circuit court for the Second Circuit. Same thing over here. The Southern District of California is inside of the Ninth Circuit. So that means the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit can review the decisions by the District Court for the Southern District of California. It's the same way with all of these numbered circuits. Every numbered circuit has multiple districts inside of it. I can't fit them all here, so I didn't draw them. I just gave you some examples. But it's the same way for all of these circuits. Well, the 12th Circuit and the 13th Circuit are different. They don't actually exist, right? There is a 12th Circuit and a 13th Circuit, but it's not called the 12th Circuit or the 13th Circuit. The 12th one is called the DC Circuit. The DC Circuit doesn't have a number because, unlike the other ones that have multiple districts inside of them, the DC Circuit only has one district inside of it. That district is called the District of Columbia. The district for the District of Columbia. And so they just gave it the name, the DC Circuit, right? So it can only hear appeals from one district, and that's the District of Columbia. And the last circuit, I'll use a different color for that one. The last circuit is unique, okay? See, all of these circuit courts, the numbered ones and the DC Circuit, they review decisions based on geography. They review decisions that come from districts that are inside of them. The Sixth Circuit wouldn't review a decision that comes from the Northern District of California. It has no business doing so because the Northern District of California is not inside the Sixth Circuit. The Northern District of California would be reviewed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But the Federal Circuit is different. The Federal Circuit doesn't have any districts inside of it. So how can it review anything? Well, the Federal Circuit isn't geographic. It isn't based on geography. All right, it operates based on subject matter. So certain special subjects like patents and trademarks, certain veterans affairs, international trade, and there are a few other subjects as well. But these special subjects are governed by the Federal Circuit. The Federal Circuit will review decisions that come from any of the districts if they relate to these subject matters. So the Southern District of California could be reviewed by the Ninth Circuit, or it could be reviewed by the Federal Circuit if it's dealing with one of these issues. If it's not dealing with one of these issues, the Southern District of California would be reviewed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that's just a quick overview of the structure of the federal court system.